here is the overview you need to think about. See, the whole thing is if you're trying to spot a very profitable load, you got to think about freight prices. I mean, when you search for loads, you need to determine which ones will help your business the most. Because if you have a cargo van or sprinter van and you're trying to actually make sure that you're deriving revenue on each load that you haul, make sure that you pay attention to what we call profitability markers. Not every load will turn much of a profit. That's something that you need to really have a clear idea about, boss. And you need to consider load criteria other than the rate. Okay, so when choosing which loads to pick up, you want to first think about the freight prices. This is really, really important. When factoring in the overall amount of money you'll make on a load, consider the rate per mile and your net profit. Now, the thing is, when we analyze this industry, and we have been doing this for 30, 45 years now, the thing is, we tell our clients to actually have three types of profit metrics. So you can have the rate per mile. You can have so that's the RPM. You also have the RPH, the rate per hour, or you can have the RPC, the rate per contract. So RPC, RPM, RPH. Boss, you got to think about which one works for you. Okay? Or do you want to get paid per contract? Do you want to get paid per mile? Or you want to get paid per hour? In our view, there is no fast and true solution. It depends on the load. It depends on the client. It depends on the route that you have to take. It depends on a constellation of factors. But think about freight prices if you want to determine a very profitable load. You want to spot a very profitable load, think about the freight prices, okay? And the thing is, you got to be aware of the average RPM on a lane before determining if you will pick up the load. Boss, this is really, really important. Don't you go on load boards, or when your dispatcher calls you and they tell you, hey, listen, would you want to pick up that load? Let me think first. I want to think first. I have to determine the average RPM on that lane, that specific lane, before I pick up the load. You also need to be aware if the RPM is too good to be true. People telling you a story about, I think the rate per mile on this load is kind of cool, whatever. No. You want to double check. Boss, please double check. If the RPC, the RPM, or the RPH is too good to be true, then you want to stay away. By the way, when I say RPM, it's rate per mile, RPH, rate per hour, and RPC, rate per contract. And so, for example, if the RPM, RPC, or RPH is inordinately higher than other loads, it may have unreasonable requirements and could even be a scam or fraudulent listing. So be very careful about that. And the thing is that you'll also need to think about your operating costs to determine how much money you will make from a load. Carriers sometimes fall into the trap of paying a higher operational cost overall than what the load is worth, which means they can actually lose money from transporting certain loads. Don't do that, boss. Never do that. So besides freight prices, you got to think about what we call lane comfort. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. We really love having you here. We're having a conversation about how to spot a very profitable load today. So, number one, freight prices, RPM, RPC, RPH. Number two, lane comfort. So the thing is, just because a load is valuable doesn't mean you should transport it, boss. Often, valuable loads are on difficult routes. Think about it. Do you want to pick up a load and you think it's profitable, and then you spend like 2 or 3 or 4 hours stuck in traffic? There is construction, traffic for whatever reason. You have a rush hour and whatnot. So you need to make sure that your cargo van, your sprinter van, your truck, your box truck is equipped for the road and weather conditions, and that most importantly, you have experience driving certain routes and in challenging climate conditions. This piece of advice is very valuable for those of you who constantly do OTR. If you do OTR, then that means that you're going, for instance, you're going out of state, for example. If you're going out of state with your cargo van or sprinter van or other vehicle that you're driving, make sure that you have a clear idea about the roads you'll be driving on. Okay, so lane comfort is really key, and it can be dangerous to operate in certain conditions if you don't have the proper equipment. And the last thing you want is to actually be stranded on the highway and have to call AAA or or another service maintenance agent, because this is you are wasting money, you are wasting time, and you are also wasting your reputation. Why? Because you'll be late. You will deliver the load late, and this could actually have an adversarial impact on your reputation, and you don't want that, boss. You definitely don't want that. So here is the approach I want you to take right now. So when you spot a load, you want to make sure that you check the lane. Are you comfortable driving on that route? Do a quick, I would say, a Google Map research. If you have a GPS in your cargo van, sprinter van, or on your truck, just put the address. Make sure that you check the geography, check the climate. Those are important elements. You want to check the elements, things like the wind. Okay, is the terrain very straightforward? What kind of equipment do you need? Think about those things beforehand. Number 3, boss. If you're trying to spot a very profitable load, besides the freight price, the lane comfort, you want to think about the size of the shipper. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how to identify a very lucrative load today. So, number 1, as I just said it, freight price, lane comfort. Now, let's talk about the size of the shipper. So, if you are working exclusively through a broker, you may not have to consider shipper size, because the broker will have contacts with shippers of all sizes, right? This is one of the advantages that comes with working with a broker, or having to outsource your load servicing to a dispatcher. Then you don't do things yourself. You basically are just drive. You just drive. You just deliver loads. That's all it is. Now, if you are working independently, you got to know the advantages and disadvantages of carrying freight for larger and smaller shippers. Larger shippers will often supply more diversity in the type of freight you are transporting, and they can usually offer more consistent freight. So that's the pro when you have a larger shipper. The con here is that when you work with a larger shipper, it's often challenging to form a close professional relationship, because they work with so many carriers. In other words, you just one number. You're just like a nobody. If something were to happen to you tomorrow, you are toast, you're good to go. They'll probably hire somebody else. I mean, even right now, maybe there's a long queue actually waiting for somebody to take your seat anyway. So you got to be aware of that dynamic. Now, let me talk about the smaller shipper. So when you work with a smaller shipper, they will notice your work performance, and you can develop a positive professional relationship. When you have a relationship with a smaller shipper, the disadvantage is that they are more likely to actually, if you were to, let's say, they pay attention more to little things. Like, let's say if you were late, for example, they might actually stop the conversation with you if you're not able to, because see, a relationship with a smaller shipper, you have to constantly maintain it. The good thing is they will refer you to other businesses, but if you do not actually perform, you are just, they will let you go as soon as possible. So be aware of that, okay? So the shipper size plays an important role in helping you determine whether or not a load is potentially profitable. Number 4, the shipper behavior. This is really, really important. If you see, the thing is, you can have something called, you can think of a load as potentially profitable, but if the shipper has a crappy behavior, boss, you're just wasting your time. Because you know what? What's going to happen here is that you probably think you made $1,000 or $5,000 on that load, and to get paid, you're going to have to actually, you're going to have to pray every Sunday before you get your money, or even contact a freight factor company to kind of help you get your cash. The shipper behavior is really important. I'm talking about how they treat carriers, how they talk to people, their customer service. You need to know how shippers treat carriers, okay? And again, We always say this. We say this to all our clients. It's not about the money. It's about the relationship. Because if you have the right relationship, you can make money day in and day out. If you have a crappy relationship, you can make money once, but to get that money, to get your hands on that revenue, you're gonna have to really, really suffer. Okay, before transporting a load, you want to research the shipper's reputation amongst carriers. Boss, this is important. I'm gonna repeat it because I want you to write it down. Before you transport any load, you want to research the shipper's reputation amongst carriers. Don't just look at the money. You probably have bills to pay. We have bills to pay. Everybody got bills to pay. But your health, your long-term productivity first, your work-life balance first. Okay? I want you to actually go home every night or every now and then and actually see your family. Okay? Take care of your wife or husband. Dance, laugh, whatever. You want to enjoy working in this industry. It's not about just like, making $1,000 or $2,000 on one load, and the next thing you know, you're just depressed. You have burnout. Okay, you have stress all over the place. No. So and this is because some shippers in this industry, they talk bad to carriers. They demean carriers. They do not respect carriers. We've been in this industry for 25, 30 years. We know what we're talking about. Okay, so you want to find out, for example, if a shipper has a good credit score and pay their carriers in a timely manner. Because if they don't pay you, there are consequences. You're going to have to hire a freight factory company. I mean, it's just a lot of, you don't want that. You also need to find out if the shipper is timely with their loads and if they will pay detention fees in the case of a delay. Okay, so big decision time, boss. Big decision time. The next time you see a load, think about that. Have you already seen a load that you are interested in? If yes, have you actually done some research about the shipper? Have you conducted due diligence about that shipper? Boss, talk to me about that. Talk to me about that. The next thing I want you to pay attention to, boss, is that you got to look at the type of freight you are transporting. The type of freight you are transporting. By the way, I want to quickly remind everybody, we are still having a conversation about how to spot a very profitable load this year. That's the topic of today's conversation. So when we talk about the type of freight, you got to ask yourself a few questions. Does your cargo van, your sprinter van, your box truck, whatever vehicle you have, does that vehicle meet the requirements for the freight? Because the thing here is that you might think, well, the load is really profitable, the money. Because see, when people talk about very profitable load, people always think about the money, how much that load will generate. But they don't think about the cost to actually operate and deliver that load. Because it's not about, when we talk about profitable load, the money that you've been paid, the RPH, the RPM, or the RPC, they're actually paying you. That's not the profit. The profit is revenue minus all expenses. That's what profit means. Accounting 101. Financial reporting 101. Income or profit equals revenue minus expenses. So you got to make sure that you have the vehicle that meets the requirements for the freight. The load may be too heavy or contain easily damaged perishable items, or maybe you're transporting federally sensitive materials, which means that there are additional requirements. Or maybe you're operating in ports or airports, which means you're going to have a TWIC card. Okay, so you want to consider whether you have the certifications or licenses required to transport the freight. Okay, it's important to use technologies that support specific operating systems. Those are things you need to think about. The thing is that some items fall under hazmat guidelines from the Department of Transportation, so you need to have a special hazmat endorsement from the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration. So when finding the right loads for your business, please consider various factors that affect the rates, your comfort, and the regulations of transporting the freight. And before taking a load, do your homework on what you will need to have to take certain freights and shipper reputation amongst carriers. This is really important. So So those are the 5 elements that will help you spot a very profitable trade, a very profitable load. So you have freight prices, lane comfort, the size of the shipper behavior, and the type of freight. Now let me give you a few pro tips here. The thing is, if you have to get started in the transportation business with a cargo van or sprinter van or other type of vehicle, it's important to think about the fact that you want to rent short term and you want to lease long term. The things a lot of people will tell you, hey, listen, just buy a van right away. No. Don't do that. You want to buy a van after 2 to 3 years or 3 to 4 years. You know why? Because after 3 to 4 years, you would have assembled the kind of the customer base that you need to become profitable in the long run. The first 2 to 3 years, you will be suffering. You'll be actually hustling. You'll be having a lot of late nights. Sometimes your wife or husband wouldn't see you, or children for that matter, wouldn't see you for several weeks. It's all about the hustle. When you start, it's all about the hustle. And this is not just particular to the cargo van or freight or sprinter van industry. It's in when you have a startup, every startup has to go through that. You have to scramble the first 2 to 3 years. But if you survive that, then you have the juice starts flowing. So this is why in the short run, you want to rent. So by using rental cargo vans or rental sprinter vans, you can set up the shipping contract in advance, go rent the vehicle on the day of the scheduled pickup and delivery, and transport the good from one location to another. And some rental places will also set up extended rentals for weeks or months at a time. So this is a great way to get started in this industry. And in the long run, do not rent, you want to lease, because it helps you actually take care of business, but also it has some great tax consequences, okay? You can actually write off a lot of those expenses, not a problem. On top of that, some lease contracts come with maintenance, monthly maintenance. If you have some technical breakdowns, they'll take care of that too. So this is really good. But so when you start, do not buy your van right away. Do not buy unless you have a solid business model that allows you to generate revenue day in and day out. I want to talk to you now. I want to continue about the pro tips here. And so if you have a sprinter van, cargo van business, whether you were new or established, you want to really continue doing the marketing. You need to market your business aggressively. This is really important. We see a lot of players in this industry. They are very comfortable having 1 or 2 clients, 1, 2 or 3 very solid clients, and just forgetting about marketing. Hey, boss, you never know about this industry. Things can change right away. Think about what happened 2 years ago, 3 years ago with COVID. Did you see COVID come? Nobody saw it coming. But stuff happens, and all of a sudden, your business model is disrupted, and you don't want that. You really don't want that. This is why you have to be in a situation where you are constantly analyzing the market. You are constantly trying to diversify the number of baskets in which you put your eggs, so that you don't actually unify all your eggs in the same basket. That's a bad strategy from the get-go. So you want to market. You want to constantly market. So when we talk about marketing your business aggressively, we're talking about doing all kinds of things, online and offline. If you have the resources, at least have a website. You want to have a basic website where you talk about your products, your services. This will help a lot. And you also need to have a Facebook page. At a minimum, if you have a Facebook page and I would say a website, you are good to go. And all you have to do, you have to register for Google My Business, so that you are searchable and you are findable locally, which is important. And you want to constantly also, if you have the money, and this depends if you have the money, try to do some CPC campaigns from time to time. Cost per click. In other words, you can advertise on Facebook, YouTube, and whatnot, Google, okay, or you can spread the word through your entourage, You can actually take a walk in the downtown area of your city to have a quick conversation with all the shippers, all the small businesses. You can talk about your services, all that kind of stuff. So you have a constellation of things you can do to actually increase your loads in the increase the profits you make on your loads in the future. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. I was just talking to you today about how to spot a very profitable load. So there are 5 factors that you need to pay attention to: freight prices, lane comforts, size of the shipper, shipper behavior, and the type of freight that you're hauling. And I just gave you a few pro tips in terms of how you get started in the shipping industry, on the how you lease versus rent, and how to market your business aggressively. Thank you so much for your attention. God bless you. I will see you next time. But until then, remember, stay marvelous.